Stop me. Rotate, let's shoot. Three takes, not me. Two takes, you luck. First take, what man?
Oh, hello there. Good morning, everyone. First take on a Thursday. Max Kellerman, Molly Karen. How are we, Max?
Molly, what's going
How we
on?
doing?
Stephen A. all day. What's up, man?
Stephen A. and
What's
NY.
up? What's up? What's going on? Good morning. How y'all doing?
We're good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good. Ready to go.
All right,
Let's roll.
let's get into it. So we are going to start in the NFL. Say what? ESPN.com's panel of 50-plus NFL experts picked the greatest 100 players in the NFL headed into the 2016 season. At the very top is Texan star J.J. Watt, Aaron Rodgers, Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, and Von Miller rounding out the top five. Not much love for last year's MVP Cam Newton, who comes in at number 10. Stephen A., do you have a problem with Watt being number one overall?
Hell yes, I do. J.J. Watt is big time. We understand that in terms of being a defensive player of the year, being as elite as he is. He deserves our respect, no doubt about it. But Aaron Rodgers should definitely be number one as far as I'm concerned. Tom Brady should be ahead of him. Antonio Brown should be ahead of him. Cam Newton damn sure needs to be ahead of him. Even Big Ben Roethlisberger should be ahead of him. J.J. Watt is a master at getting at the quarterback, drawing double teams, triple teams sometimes. It requiring the attention that his talents mandate and deserve. We respect that. We understand it. We're not taking anything away from him, but it is absolutely asinine to the highest order that this guy would be considered the best player, the most impactful player in the NFL. It makes no sense whatsoever. He has no business being ahead of at least four quarterbacks that I can think of. Again, that is Aaron Rodgers. That is Tom Brady. That is Cam Newton. That is Big Ben Roethlisberger. He also has no business being ahead of Antonio Brown. I'm telling you, I wouldn't even put J.J. Watt top five. I would definitely put him, if you're talking about elite defensive players, well, we can have a discussion there, and he'd probably be one or two. But in terms of guys who have a profound impact on the game, whose impact resonates throughout their locker room in such a fashion that you can't help but recognize how elite they are, I just gave you at least five dudes, arguably six, that come into the equation before you even think of the name J.J. Watt. It is ridiculous, but once again, this is one of these ESPN.com rankings that it's politically incorrect for us to call out, but damn that, I'm calling it out. It's ridiculous. J.J. Watt should not be number one.
First of all, the criteria for this, Stephen A., you're wrong. The criteria for this is they're just rating the players. They're talking to a whole bunch of folks, not just ESPN people, and they're asking to rate the players at their positions. So J.J. Watt is graded out the highest. It's like a Madden rating of 99 at a certain position. Doesn't mean you're necessarily better than all the quarterbacks. It just means you're rated higher, in J.J. Watt's case, as a defensive end than the quarterbacks are rated as quarterbacks. But you know what? Forget all that. Let's talk about the impact of J.J. Watt. He is such an awesome presence that he actually gets MVP consideration as a defender in this day and age, in this quarterback era. He is so awesome, you have to give him consideration as an MVP. Look, everyone you just mentioned, Aaron Rodgers, you and I probably agree is the best in the game. I think Cam Newton has a shot to unseat him. Tom Brady, though he's not showing real signs of decline yet in terms of his numbers, maybe the greatest quarterback of all time. He's not available for the first 4 games this year. He tailed off at the end of last year. Aaron Rodgers, by his own standards, did not have a great year last year. And yet J.J. Watt, through his first 5 seasons, the only player in the NFL history, to have 2 20-sack seasons. He has the second most sacks through 5 seasons in history to Reggie White. He is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. 3 out of 4 years. The only player in history to do that. But 3 out of 4. He's been in the league 5 years. 3 out of 4 is Lawrence Taylor. Willie McGinnis wrote a column about, you think he knows something about defense? About how J.J. Watt has a chance to unseat Lawrence Taylor as the greatest defensive player ever. Already, the quality of his prime is very comparable. I mean, you could even argue for it against Bruce Smith's prime and Reggie White's prime. It's that excellent. Really, the only thing he really needs to become at least the greatest defensive end to ever live is longevity. It's saying a whole lot. You know, Reggie White played 15 years and Bruce Smith 19 years. But if J.J. Watt keeps this up for another 4 or 5 seasons and then tails off over a couple of seasons, he's going to go down as the greatest defensive end ever. And he's in his prime now, right now.
But first of all, you know, I'm very, very shocked to hear you say this, considering how intellectual, cerebral, and analytical you may be. I'm very confused as to how simplistic you sound. Here's J.J. Watt. Understand this. I don't disagree with the argument that he is elite as a defensive player. I mean, the man had 3 surgeries, for crying out loud. He played through injuries last year. He had 17 and a half sacks. I think he had like 50 hits, for crying out loud, 29 tackles for a loss. The dude is elite, about 8 knockdowns. This dude is big time. As a defensive player, we understand that. But what is your obligation? You have 2 responsibilities. Get at the quarterback, assist in stopping the run. That's basically it. That's what you do. Now, you're elite at doing it. You're the best at doing it. And when you talk about impact comparable to that of Lawrence Taylor, although I would challenge that to some degree because all you got to do is run away from J.J. Watt, whereas with Lawrence Taylor, who was a middle linebacker or an outside linebacker, you're sitting there and you're looking at him and he can go in either direction, whereas J.J. Watt, you can take traffic away from him by and large, and that could be very, very beneficial to you. We recognize and understand and appreciate his impact playing in his position, how elite he is, how much of a future Hall of Famer he is. Nobody's disputing that. But when you talk about the best, you're comparing him to any position on the football field. I personally don't believe he belongs even in the same sentence as elite quarterbacks because of the mere job description that they have at the disposal, how important the position is, what they mean to a particular team. J.J. Watt is that same dude that had a 2-14 record in 2013. They won 9 games over the last 2 years with Bill O'Brien there, okay? But that's because Bill O'Brien and Rick Smith put requisite parts around them, even though they couldn't find a quarterback, and some of those parts improved. But when you talk about impact, as great as J.J. Watt is, there is but so much you could do playing at a position that's relatively limited in terms of having a profound impact
you're right
on
about
the outcome
that.
of a game. But what about the quarterback?
You shouldn't need an alarm clock to wake you up. That passion inside of you, that should just get you up automatically, right?
I think that we arrive where we want to arrive. If we are passionate, if we're dedicated, if we're resilient.
There's no right answer. There's no right job for you. You gotta try things, see what sticks to your soul.
Your work is a representation of you, and that's something that you should take pride in.
He shouldn't even be mentioned.
Well, you're right. But the fact that he is Stephen A., think about that for a second. You're right. Rush, get after the quarterback, stop the run. And even though McGinnis, in that same article where he said he may replace LT as the greatest ever, and I agree with you, LT is the greatest ever, was even saying, look, he's right now stopping the run a lot on his athletic ability. He needs to improve technique there in order to have longevity. But just the fact that that's all you got to do, and you are universally considered, every time the subject of MVP comes up, I'm sure we'll be talking about it later this year. Should J.J. Watt get any votes? Could he possibly win the MVP? When you're right, in this day and age, with all the responsibility of the quarterback and the limited scope of the responsibilities of a defensive end, he's even in that conversation. And by the way, Jadeveon Clowney, who's being a little slept on, if he can put it together this year, and I think there's reason to be optimistic.
Did you just say Jadeveon Clowney is being slept on?
Slept on, yeah.
Let me say for the record, slept on.
Yeah.
I'm snoring. I'm in a coma about Jadeveon Clowney. Could you show up and play? Could you be eligible to wear a uniform on a Sunday afternoon?
Gets after it.
Say that. You got to be crazy. Yeah. Sleep. I am snoring on Jadeveon Clowney. Don't get me wrong. I'm not snoring on his skill.
Oh.
I know he can play.
Then you'd be
snoring on his. The best ability is available. ability. Jadeveon Clowney, I am snoring. I'm waiting to see him play. I don't recall seeing him play. I don't recall. Last time I saw him play with his penultimate last season in South Carolina, because the last season he took the year off because he didn't want to get hurt. He's been hurt since he got in the pros. I am snoring on him. I took 3 Ambiens on Jadeveon Clowney. It must be crazy. You must be crazy.
Save this tape, please, producer.
That's right. That's right. Save it.
Clowney stays
Save it.
healthy.
I'm going on history.
If Clowney stays healthy,
I'm
point in
snoring
bringing
on Jadeveon
Clowney is if you give J.J. Watt help on the other side, he is so excellent that immediately you give him another pass rusher, and it's like he has the impact of a quarterback. It's like all of a sudden the Texans, you got to be like, oh my God, you got to play the Texans.
What? What are you going to tell me next, Max? The sky is blue on a sunshiny day. Who the hell doesn't know that? Of course.
By the way,
that's the reality.
You know
but Jadeveon, when has Jadeveon Clowney been available for you to bring him up in such laudable terms? If Jadeveon Clowney, really? Yeah. How would you know? Hold on. What?
Pretty good.
Hold on. I understand. I live in a world where plausible deniability is apropos sometimes, but here's the reality, Max Kellerman. What evidence do you have that Jadeveon Clowney can play on this level?
Eyeballs.
What evidence? Where is it?
Eyeballs. The optic nerve.
What eyeballs? I haven't seen him. When have you seen him? I haven't seen him in 3 years. When have you seen him?
Can we get back to J.J. Watt? You really want to talk about Jadeveon Clowney? Are you so afraid that I'm beating you in the Watt argument? You're trying to take the detour with Clowney? Is that what's going on here?
You must be crazy.
Do you know who's number one in fumble recoveries since he entered the league? J.J. Watt. He is everywhere. He's a nightmare. When I think about the greatest defensive players I've ever seen, he's already, I think, LT. You're right. I think LT number 1. I actually think Deion Sanders number 2 in terms of his ability to affect the outcome of the game.
We agree there.
I think Bruce Smith, J.J. Watt, he's already in my imagination as one of the best I've ever seen. And while at quarterback, as great as Aaron Rodgers is, Cam Newton, Tom Brady, there's less of a value over replacement at the elite level. They're all amazing. J.J. Watt has put distance between himself, I'm not saying any defender, and the next best defensive end. And he's being rated at his position as the top guy, I think, correctly.
Well, what I'm saying to you is this. We don't dispute anything. See, this is when you're slick. You understand what I'm saying? You've been talking to people and you try to get slick. It doesn't work with me, Mac. I'm an expert at this stuff. I see what you're leaving out. You don't change the narrative. Nobody's questioning the elite stature of J.J. Watt as a defensive player. We know that defensively he's the best in the game. A matter of fact, I'm on the verge of putting him ahead of Bruce Smith, to be quite honest with you. But let me be very, very clear. Regardless of any of that, no defensive end has any business being put ahead of Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady.
What do you want them to do?
Cam Newton.
What do you want them to do?
Big Ben Roethlisberger and even Antonio Brown.
Okay, Stephen A., what do you want them to do? If they're putting together a list where they're talent evaluators, scouts, writers, and analytics, and they're saying, who's at their position? How do you rate this guy? How do you rate this guy? And Watt winds up with the most points. What do you want him to do? Make a weighted average? That's not what this is. And my point is, even if you made a weighted average, Watt is so gangster, he's still in the conversation.
He's still in the conversation in terms of a league MVP, depending on the success of his team. We know what he can do individually, but even with what he does individually, it's not measurable. Watt at his best is not comparable to Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or Big Ben or Cam at their best. That's my point. So why even put him up in there? Because so we can discuss it, so you can agitate people with such an idiotic proclamation. I'm talking about the poll here, not you. I'm saying that you're going to sit up there and take a defensive end and say a defensive end with 2 responsibilities: rush the passer, help stop the run. That is your definition of the best player in football. As complicated as the game of football is, as comprehensive as it is, especially at the quarterback position, and you're going to tell me with elite quarterbacks, with Aaron Rodgers and his talent, with Tom Brady, 4 chips, J.J. Watt, who came off a 2-win season just 3 years ago, had 2 9-7 seasons to follow that up. J.J. Watt is the best
remember when we did the draft?
Football?
Remember when we did our fantasy draft?
Stop it.
You, me, and Molly.
Stop it.
And you made the mistake of going for a quarterback first. You took the best player overall on the board, Aaron Rodgers, but because of scarcity at the position, Molly and I started taking running backs and wideouts because there was a greater drop-off from the elite than there is at quarterback. The same thing applies here. Scarcity at the position helps J.J. Watt in this argument in terms of the distance he's put between himself and the next best guy versus the distance that the quarterbacks have put, the elite ones, between themselves and the other elite quarterbacks.
That's not the metric. I don't want to hear that nonsense as a metric. I ain't even buying that, but I will get back to the fantasy football about this. Let's make sure we're honest with the American people.
Oh, here we go.
I never played fantasy football in my life. I never participated in a draft in my life, and I was given a list, and I was led to believe that the quarterback position had to be picked first. Molly hoodwinked me.
Oh, stop. I just owned you.
She cheated, and so she could get her hands on Antonio Brown. I'm a Steelers fan.
You shouldn't need an alarm clock to wake you up. That passion inside of you, that should just get you up automatically.
Believing in yourself isn't something that happens overnight.
I think that we arrive where we want to arrive if we are passionate, if we're dedicated, if we're resilient.
And the mistakes and the barriers and the difficult challenges, for me, are part of the process. It's normal.
There's no right answer. There's no right job for you. You gotta figure it out. You gotta try things, see what sticks to your soul. Do what you want to do. And if you don't know what you want to do, just do something.
Your work is a representation of you. And that's something that you should take pride in.
She cheated, and so she could get her hands on Antonio Brown. I'm a Steelers fan. You think I wouldn't have picked Antonio Brown as my first receiver? Come
Stephen
on.
A., we have to move on, but in closing, I have two words for you. Davion Clowney. That's all I want to say.
Speaking of
You
which,
should be ashamed of
he had a
yourself.
sack in
I'm
his first
snoring.
preseason game, Clowney versus the Saints. I did not cheat people. I just know the rules. Strategy. Moving on. Drama in San Diego. The Chargers said Wednesday that rookie holdout Joey Bosa rejected the team's best offer. The Chargers said their discussions and offers to the number 3 overall pick in the draft have been both fair and structurally consistent with the contracts of every other Chargers player. Bosa's representatives responded in a statement later Wednesday saying the Chargers have decided to manipulate facts and negotiate in the media. Chargers executive John Spanos unloaded on Bosa to the San Diego Union Tribune. Quote, I'm blown away. At all costs, I wanted to avoid going down this road. They made it overly clear we had no other option. It's absolutely asinine. He would have gotten more cash in this calendar year than anyone except Carson Wentz. Stephen A., whose side are you on?
Believe it or not, I'm on the Chargers side in this matter. Here is why. I'm all for the players and Joey Bosa in this particular equation because to me, the Chargers should have done their homework, etc., etc. But I'm not going to belabor that point. At the end of the day, Joey Bosa wanted one of two things. He wanted the language eliminated or he wanted that money. When I read what the Chargers statement says, assuming it's accurate, I reserve the right, Max, to change my mind if we find out they're lying. But based on what they said in their statement, if indeed it's true that an initial signing bonus payment that is larger than any rookie has received in the past 2 NFL drafts. They didn't say any rookie they drafted. They said any rookie. If that is true, if it is true that they offered Bosa more money in 2016 than every rookie in this year's class except Philadelphia Eagles number 2 overall pick, Carson Wentz. If it is true that their offer to Bosa is the largest payment and the highest percentage of a signing bonus received in the first calendar year of any Chargers pick since the adoption of the CBA in 2011, which, by the way, is not that big of a deal because they didn't even have a top 10 pick. The point that I'm making is we're talking about Bosa nickel and diming here because they're throwing a boatload of money at him. If you're giving him more money than anybody but Carson Wentz, okay? If you're sitting up there and you've offered him more money in 2016 than every rookie since other than Carson Wentz and the initial signing bonus payment that is larger than any rookie has received in the last 2 NFL drafts, we're talking about something in excess of $15 million. Now, if Joey Bosa wanted every dime, like he said, for the first year, and that was going to amount to $17 million, we're talking, calculating that maybe $1 million, possibly as much as $2 million, is what it's costing him here. That is not a reason for the number 3 overall pick in the NFL draft, who wants to play football, who's known for his motor and being an energizer buddy and loving the game of football and wanting to play it, possibly missing an entire rookie campaign because of this. In the event that he does not sign with the Chargers, they're not going to trade him. They can't trade him. As a result, he has to miss the entire season, okay, because the Chargers retain his rights until the next NFL draft, at which time he could be drafted by somebody else. So you're talking about yourself missing your entire rookie campaign. If you miss your entire rookie campaign, then to me, even though it has happened on at least 3 or 4 occasions before in NFL history, I'm questioning your desire to really play, and I'm questioning your desire to play for this franchise that drafted you. That's the issue here to me. I have to side with the Chargers on this particular incident, assuming that they are telling the truth about what they claim they offer.
They could be telling the truth about every single thing. I side unequivocally and 100% with Joey Bosa. I don't think the Chargers have a leg to stand on. I think they are a laughing stock of an organization right now. I think Spanos is, when you look at what happened in LA with Kroenke, they couldn't get the deal they wanted because they were in an inferior negotiating position. So they took their ball and they stayed home in San Diego, which is not good for them. I think here they're doing the same thing. The nerve of the Chargers to claim that this is not the way the Chargers do business. This is not the way we've ever done it. Talking about offset language or bonus, one or the other, payable before the, by the end of the first season. Hey, Chargers, who cares the way you do business? This is the way the NFL does business right now. Every single guy in the last 5 years, except for Bosa now, selected as the number 3 overall pick, gets one or the other, the offset language, or they get the bonus payable by the end of the year. So they're trying to make it an exception. Now, they haven't drafted in the top 5 since then. So either what's going on is the Chargers are getting pressure from other NFL teams. Hey, you got to toe the line here. This is a battleground with the union. We need to win this fight. And I have no knowledge of that. I'm just assuming, but let's not assume anything and just say the Chargers are acting alone here. That means that they're insisting on the way they do business in the past before this new system, taking precedent over the way business has been done by the rest of the league since then. And what they're doing is sending a signal, as Bosa's mother pointed out on Twitter when this started going down, that that if you're drafted by the Chargers in the top 5, you should pull an Eli Manning and not go there. And this is a team that's likely to be the worst in their division this year. They're not at poor Phillip Rivers, a great quarterback who's not being put in a position to succeed by an organization that is doing the wrong thing here. And in terms of Spanos analyzing the contract offer and then saying Bosa's a fool to turn it down. Come on, guys. You made an offer. They countered with a counter that's precedent has been set already. You sat on it, did not change your negotiating position, and now come back and said, well, he should have taken it. We think it's in his best interest. That's what a negotiation is. Each side looking for their own best interest. And I will take the word of Joey Bosa and his representatives that the deal was not in his best interest, or maybe not in the union's best interest, versus the Chargers saying it was on the other side's best interest to do what we felt they should do. In terms of the practicality of it all, the fact that Bosa's turning down money for a year in which he's unlikely to get injured, he'll re-enter the draft, go to a better franchise, make a ton of money anyway. But the idea that he shouldn't stand on principle, but the Chargers here are admitting they're standing on principle, to me doesn't pass muster. Why isn't it okay for a player ever to stand on principle just because it's not pragmatic?
Wait a minute.
Stephen A., why every time a guy has to sacrifice something, does that make it a bad idea for him?
Well, if you give me a chance, instead of asking the same questions 4 different times, I'll answer it for you. The fact of the matter is that nobody is saying that it was wrong for Bosa to stand on principle. We applaud him standing on principle.
You shouldn't need an alarm clock to wake you up. That passion inside of you, that should just get you up automatically, right?
I think that we arrive where we want to arrive. If we are passionate, if we're dedicated, if we're resilient.
There's no right answer. There's no right job for you. You got to try things, see what sticks to your soul.
Your work is a representation of you, and that's something that you should take pride in.
Standing on principle. A matter of fact, let's point out that he comes from, I don't want to say affluent because I don't know his business, but he certainly doesn't come from the poorest background, okay? So because of that, he's in a position that most of these athletes wouldn't be in, so I applaud him for exploiting it to the best of his ability. There's no shame in that. My point is, based on what I read about what Joey Bosa wanted, this doesn't appear to be far off. We know what the Chargers are as an organization. We get that because history is not on their side. But we've also heard players in a Chargers uniform speak out about Bosa, speak out against him. Not that they were right to do so, because you don't get to manage that man's money and his finances. You step away from all of that. But it does resonate with me that they said it nonetheless, because what they're pointing to is the issue of fairness per se. And if you are the Chargers and you're looking around and you're able to say, we've offered him more money than everyone in this draft, with the exception of Carson Wentz. That resonates to me because Carson Wentz was picked before him. So he shouldn't be getting paid more than Carson Wentz. Just like Carson Wentz shouldn't be getting paid more than Jared Goff, as far as I'm concerned, because the number 1 pick should get more than the number 2 pick, the number 2 pick should get more than the number 3 pick, and so on and so forth. Nobody's knocking Bosa for standing on principle. We get it. But if it's close, Max, it's a negotiation. If it's close to what you wanted, then it comes down to a situation where one must ask the question, how badly do you want to play? I have no problem with him sitting there saying, I'm going on a football field, one play can end my career, blah, blah, blah. I get all of that if you're oceans apart. But if you're not, and you're relatively close, and both sides are just playing hardball, to me, when you are a player, it does come down to a point where you must ask, it must be asked, how badly do you want to play?
I think the question is, how bad do the Chargers want to win? They drafted where they did because they lost
we know the answer to that question.
Well, I mean,
we know the answer to that question.
Well, obviously,
it never seems like it's much.
They are more interested in the Chargers are more interested in standing on principle, whether it's to win a battle with the players' union, this is NFL pressure, or it's their own franchise wanting to toe some imaginary line because based on who knows what, their own set of guidelines for how they negotiate contracts that's contrary to the way the rest of the NFL does it. Either way, they're not serious about winning.
I have a question. So, Max, at the end of the day, is your problem with these negotiations the particulars and the specificities of it all? Or is it the fact that it involves the Chargers? In other words, if these were the Giants and the same offer was on the table, would you have a problem with the Giants?
Well, yes, I would. And I would want them to sign their draft pick. But you do get more equity when you've won Super Bowls recently than teams that haven't. But beyond that, besides that, I mean, I'm a Giants fan. It's hard. I'm biased. I root for the organization.
I'm saying
yes, I would be angry at the Giants.
Why?
Why? Because they have a number 3 pick and they refuse to sign him over nothing.
Guys, we have to go to break. We can pick up the conversation later. Herm Edwards is going to join us. We'll revisit this subject. We can get back into it and pick up right where we left off. I'm sorry to have to cut you off. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Michael Bennett has been very outspoken this summer regarding his discontent with his contract situation. The Seahawks pass rusher has made a point to remind everyone he wants a new contract, and he does it every time a player receives a massive extension, even his own teammates. Well, Seattle wide receiver Doug Baldwin took issue with Bennett's comments, telling the News Tribune, I mean, yes, there is a code, but Mike B doesn't always necessarily operate by that code either. It's hard to take him serious when he talks about other guys taking food off his kid's plate when he's driving around here with 10 different cars, you know? Stephen A., you have a problem here with Baldwin's comments?
Well, first, let me say ouch and damn. I mean, what a comeback. What a comeback. Let me say that first. Secondly, I must acknowledge to you, I don't have a problem with that. I would have a problem if Michael Bennett was minding his business and just going about his business of playing the game of football, and Doug Baldwin felt the need to come out and say something like that. I would have a problem. I would think that's crossing the line. You don't need to do that to a teammate. But if Michael Bennett is out there opening his mouth about what he wants, every time somebody else gets something they want, like Doug Baldwin, a $46 million deal, or whatever the case, Russell Wilson, or whomever, and Michael Bennett uses that as an excuse to bring up his own finances, then I think it's totally in bounds for Doug Baldwin to say, pump the brakes a little bit. You ain't the only one that's out here working your butt off trying to be the best that you can be and get paid so you can take care of your family. You ain't the only one doing that. Some of us are doing it too. And by pointing out that some of you are doing it and then bringing up the 10 cars, that's a good point, because if you listen to Michael Bennett, if you talk about things a bit too much, then you give the impression that you're sort of suffering. And Doug Baldwin was pointed out, brother, you ain't suffering. We understand you want some money. We understand you might even deserve that money. But the flip side is that you're far from the poorhouse. You walking around with 10 different cars. Now, I didn't know that about Michael Bennett. Don't particularly care about those particulars as it involves Michael Bennett. But Doug Baldwin is pointing out something very astute and very accurate when he's highlighting the fact that you can't go around talking about the money other people's making, the money that you deserve, acting like you're struggling when clearly and conspicuously that's not your situation. That's not your case. Because it comes across as you griping and throwing salt on what other people are after. And Doug Baldwin basically just checked him on that. And Michael Bennett doesn't hesitate to check people. I like Michael Bennett. I like Martellus Bennett. I like them brothers. I think they're good people. I love the fact that they are outspoken about a lot of different things. I'm fans of theirs. But that doesn't mean that they're completely flawless. And in this particular instance, I think Doug Baldwin is the one that's right here with what he said because of why he felt the need to say it. This was provoked by Michael Bennett, and that's what needs to be recognized here.
Boy, that is an excellent point. But Stephen A., I'm surprised that you missed the bigger picture here.
Sure.
Now, first, I want to preface it by saying I love Doug Baldwin. He's one of the most underrated players in football. One of the most underrated. Deserved all the money. If he and Russell Wilson were on a team that cared more about how much they're running up the stats and less about winning, people would recognize how good Doug Baldwin is. But I don't think he should be talking about, whatever the provocation, he still shouldn't be talking about Bennett's money. Even if he feels in a roundabout way Bennett's talking about his, I don't think it makes...
You shouldn't need an alarm clock to wake you up. That passion inside of you, that should just get you up automatically.
Believing in yourself isn't something that happens overnight.
I think that we arrive where we want to arrive if we are passionate, if we're dedicated, if we're resilient.
And the mistakes and the barriers and the difficult challenges, for me, are part of the process. It's normal.
There's no right answer. There's no right job for you. You gotta figure it out. You gotta try things, see what sticks to your soul. Do what you want to do. And if you don't know what you want to do, just do something.
Your work is a representation of you. And that's something that you should take pride in.
Is it right to talk about Bennett? And I really like Bennett. He's an interesting guy. Media week before the Super Bowl, he's the best quote. He's interested in books and ideas, and he's outspoken, and he can ball. I'm a fan of his. But this is actually what's happening, Stephen A. Right now, you know who's laughing at all this? Laughing. The owners are laughing. because I want to make this very clear. A salary cap is intended to do this. It has nothing to do with competitive balance. That's revenue sharing. You can revenue share, that'll create competitive balance, but a salary cap, and remember they roll the players back on the percentage of everything. A salary cap is simply 100% of the time, always and only about diverting funds from the players, from labor, to the owners. That's all it is. You take money from them and you give it to the owners. So what kind of an atmosphere does this create? It means, hey, here is the finite number of dollars to be shared by the players. You are not subject to free market forces for your services. If people want to bid on you, that's fine, but there's a finite number of dollars, and it's going to be artificially suppressed by the cap. And so what winds up happening is everyone starts bickering and fighting for their little piece. And if Baldwin gets paid X number of dollars, that necessarily means there is less money for a guy like Michael Bennett. And that's really what's being addressed here. The fact that Bennett will not be able to get his true market price, neither did Baldwin, even though he got paid, by the way, because every dollar you give to Peter, you must rob Paul from necessarily. It's a zero-sum game. So what happens is the players turn on each other.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is this. With that being said, are you saying that I get where you're coming from in terms of dissecting what transpired, but do you agree with Martellus Bennett? You think he's a victim here, or you think Doug Baldwin is what would you say?
I don't think Baldwin should ever be talking about Bennett's money, even if Bennett was talking about his. Two wrongs don't make a right. And even if he feels like Bennett is slighting him in a roundabout way without even using his name, that's hypocritical to say, Bennett's being hypocritical, so now I'm going to be hypocritical going after him. That doesn't make it right.
Yeah, but the point is this, look, here's the reality. People, you are allowed to be annoyed and somebody gets on your damn nerves. You pulled that off with me a couple of times in the last 3 weeks, okay? And you only been on the job for 3 weeks. I mean, people get on your damn nerves sometimes, and sometimes you gotta check them. That's what you gotta do. And that's the way it goes. It's not ideal that Doug Baldwin did that, but Michael Bennett keeps griping about what other people are making, and Doug Baldwin is like, wait, making a good point. Why'd you come around with one car instead of 10? Maybe we might feel sorry for you a little bit. Maybe we might empathize with your plight, if indeed a plight existed. And so he's pointing out how you gonna sit up here and act like you under some plight, you endure some kind of plight or whatever. Pump the brakes, calm down, chill out, and stop feeling the need to talk about somebody's money. And sometimes people chirp too much. You gotta check them. You gotta silence them.
Yeah, but think about what he's saying, Stephen.
Michael Bennett might shut up because of this.
I think you're making a very strong point there. But think about what he's really saying. What he really did there, Doug Baldwin. When the real issue is they have to fight over the finite dollars that are artificially suppressed by the owners. Baldwin's turning it around and making it an issue of conspicuous consumption on the part of Bennett, and that's really not the issue here, but he's making it the issue.
Yes,
so even the content of what he said isn't good, let alone the kind of hypocrisy of calling someone out for being hypocritical.
The fact of the matter is, when was this collective bargaining agreement signed? It was in 2011. We are now in 2016. 5 years in to a 10-year deal that should have never been signed. Anybody that knows anything about their business in professional sports know that you don't sign no damn 10-year deal without an out. What you do is at least have an out like year 6 or 7. We're getting ready to discuss the NBA and their collective bargaining agreement months from now. You know why? Because even though they're in the throes of a deal, of a multi-billion-dollar deal, both sides have the license to back out of a deal if they feel it should be renegotiated in their best interest. The NFL players elected not to do that. And as a result, Michael Bennett is clearly smart enough and wise enough to know that. So why do you keep chirping? That's what Doug Baldwin, who's from Stanford, that's what he's pointing out, and I don't think he's wrong about that.
You're right about that, too. Another strong point. But aren't you the same guy who was it yesterday or 2 days ago, at some point this week, we're talking about, hey, don't send out that message that they need to batten down the hatches and save their money for a union fight because the NFL is going to win that anyway? Now you're saying that in the previous CBA, they should have driven a tougher bargain, even if it meant a long lockout?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that instead of committing to 10 straight years without an out, have an out by year 6 or 7 like the NBA has. That's all I'm saying.
We can agree on that.
Because what you're dealing with right now is them having to wait until 2021 in order to renegotiate a deal that they've been whining about since 2011. So they will have spent a decade whining about something where they could have at least negotiated an out, and they failed to do so. These are issues that Michael Bennett is smart enough to recognize. Doug Baldwin clearly is smart enough to recognize it. So we don't want to hear Max Kellerman coming out of the woodwork talking about how collective bargaining is the real issue and the owners are.
But you're going to hear it.
When in fact they know their conditions. So what you whining about it for all of this time if you're Michael Bennett aiming your eye at the players when you should be talking about the owners?
What we do agree on is get it together, NFLPA. Get it together. You got another one coming up in the next.
What else we agree on is don't talk about another person's family or money, and you will save yourself a lot of headaches. Word to the wise.
Just won the debate. How about that?
Coming up next, plain and simple, should the Cavs trade Kevin Love?
My answer is going to be no, believe it or not. Listen, do I think Love was worth $113 million? No, I do not. I don't think he was worth that. I think he's a damn good player, though. I don't think that he's a scrub. I think that a lot of people, have been entirely too hard on him because there's a huge adjustment that needed to be made in Cleveland, and obviously that's going to take some time. He's not Chris Bosh, but Kevin Love is a 6'9", 6'10" body, rather, who can bang, who can step away from the basket and hit spot-up three-point shots. He didn't show that against Golden State, obviously. That's a potential matchup nightmare for him. We understand that. But by and large, over the course of an 82-game schedule, combined with having to go through the East, he's an above-average player. I think that last year was difficult for him. I think psychologically, there was a tremendous amount of pressure that he was ill-equipped to handle. And from that standpoint, I think it's been cause for a lot of people, including myself, to jump all over him because there were times when he was completely anemic and absent and all of those things. But when you look at his skill set and you look at what other teams possess, Kevin Love is one of the better players in basketball. It's just that you're playing with LeBron and Kyrie. And Kevin Love is a guy that can't be on the court with Kyrie. He's best on the court with LeBron. That's where your problem lies. You might look at that as an excuse to bench him, but I'm saying, excuse me, you don't have to do that. He could be that guy coming off the bench. He could be that guy that spark plug for you when one of those guys go to the bench. He's a guy that can rebound. He can bang. He showed a willingness to defend when the championship was on the line. And then you also have to ask yourself what you can get for him. Now, I changed my mind instantly. If you're telling me I can get Carmelo for Kevin Love, I'd absolutely do that if I was Cleveland. I wouldn't do that if I was New York, but I would do it if I'm Cleveland. If you're talking about Phoenix and you're working out a 3-team deal that can get you an Eric Bledsoe from Phoenix or somebody from Boston along with Bledsoe to come to Cleveland, or a Melo and Bledsoe combination, that would be something special. And you lose Love for that. But just to jump ship with him and get rid of him because he serves no purpose, no. Last year was tough for him. There is no doubt about that. But he can play. He's not a scrub. And I wouldn't give up on him, especially now since he's a champion and you got that pressure off your back, not just as an individual, but as a franchise overall. You've got that proverbial monkey off your back. Cleveland has a championship for the first time in over 52 years. I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think right now you're playing with house money. I think you roll the dice and keep it as is unless a marquee trade is out there for you. You don't just trade him for nothing.
Now, I've watched and read Stephen A. Smith on the NBA for years and have a tremendous amount of respect for you, Stephen A. Just as you've said the same thing about me as it relates to boxing. But just like Stephen A. Smith loves him some boxing. I mean, you love boxing. You're a knowledgeable boxing fan. I love me some NBA basketball. And if we can't go at each other about these subjects, we ain't got a show. So we got to go at this right now, with all due respect, of course. First of all, the history of the NBA has... They should trade Kevin Love. They should have already traded Kevin Love. That's been obvious. The history of the NBA has been... Here are the arguments against it. History of the NBA has been, the team that gets the best player in the deal usually, almost always, wins the deal. And in any trade involving Kevin Love, the other team is likely to get the better player because Kevin Love is an excellent player. He's not a future Hall of Famer, but he's an excellent player, offensive player. So there's that. There's also the idea that it takes a while to integrate pieces onto a team. And having got the back-to-back finals, and this time having won, to trade him now and get new parts and integrate them and then hope to compete with the Warriors and Durant, in the finals, which looks extremely likely, is asking a lot. But I think it may be asking more to do it with Kevin Love. Kevin Love's major problem is defense. He gets roasted in the pick and roll, and this is a pick and roll league. So it's really an Achilles heel for the Cavs. Now, he does serve a purpose as a stretch four. He can rebound, etc. But there's an old Woody Allen line about this. It's like swatting a fly with a Buick. It's overkill. You don't need Kevin Love to do that job. You can find a much lesser part to do the job offensively that the Cavs need from him. And that same player very well may be better defensively. Let's take what the Celtics could offer. For example, Jay Crowder. A pat and stuff. You could probably get Jay Crowder, save money, and get other stuff. A Swiss Army knife player, which you can see, look at the Warriors roster in this NBA, is so valuable. A two-way player. You try to get Avery Bradley, too, if you can. It's one or the other plus stuff. Another two-way player. They could bring in with LeBron, the best player in the world, and Kyrie, who really showed himself in this last finals. You got the penetration. You can find shooters. What you need is two-way Swiss Army knife, players who can defend multiple positions, switch, all that stuff in a league where Tobias Harris is now playing power forward. You bring in a guy like Jay Crowder, a few other pieces. I think it would be demonstrably better than what Kevin Love has done for that team so far.
Well, I think that when you say, well, first of all, I'm not disagreeing with that point because I do understand if you could get a Bledsoe and a Crowder for crying out loud, of course you do something like that. I'm just saying, of course you do something like that, and Crowder would definitely be a rough, rugged kind of dude that would fit in nicely with them defensively, energetically, etc. But he's not the shooter that Kevin Love is from the perimeter, and I think that it'll be a mistake to look at Kevin Love's performance, particularly in the finals, from a shooting standpoint, and think that defines his game. One of the things that I've been apprehensive about, Kevin Love deserved the criticism that he received, but it was for his performance, not his career and his overall game. His overall game is that he's a defensive liability at times, but he can rebound, he will bang, and he can step away from the basket and hit perimeter shots and keep opposing defenses honest more than most do.
Can I say a word about that, Stephen A?
In the game, and I just think that we need to sit up there. It's one thing to critique him and what he hasn't done in a particular series. It's another thing entirely to act like this brother can't play. Kevin Love can play.
I want to address that for a second.
He deserves more respect than we've given him.
I think one of the reasons Kevin Love has become overrated is because a couple of years ago he was considered a big. You mentioned 6'9", 6'10". Out of shoes, this guy is 6'7" and change. He's not that big. So when a couple of years ago he was perceived as a big, he's like, wow, oh my God, he grabs all those rebounds on a losing team. Didn't defend very well then either. And shoots from the outside like that, 37% from three. That was unusual then. That's not unusual that much in this NBA. Lots of stretch fours out there nowadays, and suddenly if you don't perceive him as that big anymore, kind of just a slow three instead of a four who can shoot, what he does is not that special in this NBA.
That's not true. And the reason why, you got people trying to do that, but they're not necessarily successful doing that. The man averaged 16 and 10 on 36% shooting from. Let me finish. 36% shooting from 3-point range, and it was considered a bad year. Kevin Love can play. I'm not saying you hold on to him for dear life. I'm saying now that you're the champion, he deserves the cushion of going into the season and seeing what he's got. Because people who want him ain't going to stop wanting him because he starts the season with the Cavs. Pump the brakes on the summer. That's what I'm saying.
Gentlemen, we have to agree to disagree on that one, because coming up next, Josh Norman had some comments on the media's backlash to his ESPN The Magazine piece. But forget his comments. You don't want to miss Herm Edwards. Rumor is he's hot on this subject. Strong take coming up next. Hey, Coach.
Take it, I'm a big boy. Got some big shoes, so if I can have that, unique set of tools and skills to be able to fend off everything that people say, I can take it. I can take it and continue to be successful. I mean, get shit like that, and everything comes with it. Everything is magnified times 2.
So that was Josh Norman reacting to the media, essentially reacting to his candid ESPN The Magazine piece where he was very outspoken on a variety of controversial NFL topics. From Edwards, the coach is now here with us. Always a pleasure.
Always good to be here. My good friend is out. Smooth Sue, coach.
He looked good on Sports Center.
Jacket. I'm trying to hold the Hall of Fame jacket, but I don't have a Hall of Shame jacket on. I want to make sure you wear that. That's probably more important.
Never. No. You and that don't go in the same sentence. What's your reaction to what you just heard from Norman reacting to us?
Well, he's obviously building up his reality show he's going to have on Fox, I guess, during the season. He's going to be a commentator. He's building his brand, obviously. And I think Josh sits in a unique position in the fact that he comes in the league now not a highly drafted player, and through his ability to work hard, his work ethic, his skills, has put him in position now where whether he likes it or not, he becomes a face and a little bit of a leader of this organization. Not so much in Carolina. We knew who was there. It was Cam Newton, Kuechly. Now he goes to Washington, which is more media than obviously Carolina. And everything he says now, whether he's talking to ESPN Magazine, it becomes a part of the conversation. And there's always going to be people that disagree with you. I would say this if I was his coach. From this day forward, you have to watch your words, because words are powerful. And you can say things, but when you say them and you use certain words, it raises a red flag to the conversation. And you have to be responsible for those words. And with that, you're going to get some people that agree, some people that don't. But you don't want to have to waste your time defending yourself, because you have to play football. And this is a hard game, this football thing, for you especially because of the position you play. And then you don't want it to drag into the locker room, because now all your teammates get affected by what you're saying. They have to answer questions where they want nothing to do with it. Say, look, I'm not in that conversation. That's Josh. So I think he has to be careful. It's freedom of speech, but you don't want to be all of a sudden become a distraction in the locker room.
You only have so much energy.
Yeah. And then, and he's never been in it. He's never been on this platform before. But he earned it through his play. He earned his money. He earned his contract. He earned the publicity he's received right now through his play. But how you handle it going forward, I think, will determine a lot of it.
That's such a good point, Coach, because I can tell you, first of all, about building his brand. If he has a TV show, people are increasingly aware of him every day that passes, and he throws out a bomb, a verbal bomb. But as someone with a media platform, I can tell you, it feels good in the moment when you name call. In the moment, it feels good. It's an expression of your emotions, and especially in a culture where you're constantly told not to do that. To do that when you have a media platform, I can tell you from personal experience, feels good. The problem is this. It obliterates, to your point, Coach, it obliterates your point. As soon as you throw a trigger word in, a bomb, you name call the commissioner or another player, all that people are going to focus on is that word, is that name calling, is that, and your point, your more subtle point that you're making, even if it's correct, is going to get lost. So it's really a function of immaturity. That as you mature, you learn to try to control that impulse a little bit more. But as you said, since he has a TV show, he's working at cross purposes, even if his better angels or his more mature angels are telling him at times, maybe, behave a little or talk a little bit more responsibly in terms of the name calling. It's actually good for him to raise his profile right now. It's actually good for him.
Stephen A.
Well, it may be good for him, and I know Josh a little bit, and we've spoken on many occasions in the past, and he makes no apologies, Coach Max, about where he's going here. He's thinking about his career in football. He's also thinking about a career beyond football. And in fairness to him, it's plausible. When you're basically undrafted, you come from Coastal Carolina, you work your way up from the practice squad to a roster spot, to ultimately being a starter and then recognized as one of the elite corners in the game. And you go through like a 4 to 5 year period where you're pounding that pavement and you're really on your grind. And then ultimately you elevate yourself to being recognized one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the game. And you position yourself to capture a 5-year, $75 million contract with $50 million guaranteed. That can't be ignored. You gotta appreciate it. You gotta respect it. He clearly comes from very humble beginnings. He's made a lot of sacrifices to get to where he is. I think that we recognize what he's doing. The problem is that he's got to back it up. And even though the money itself put more pressure on him to back it up, now that heightened level of scrutiny is something that he fights it. And he's of the mindset that he's a big boy. He can handle it. Let me tell you what I know about Josh Norman that I don't think he can handle. He can't handle unfairness. He can't handle when people inaccurately portray him in a certain way, inaccurately depict him in a certain light, etc., etc. And everybody up here knows that when you are in the public eye and you invite scrutiny because you're so quick to scrutinize, that is exactly what happens. And he's in a performance business. People can attack us all day long, but we have the luxury of coming right back and attacking, and it's essentially a verbal sparring session. With Josh Norman, no, that ain't verbal sparring. That's verbal sparring on top of the fact that you got to go out on the field and perform. And you put the pressure of a franchise on your shoulders. Now, you listen to aficionados, Coach, and I've said this to Max and Molly. I've got experts telling me speed is an issue with Josh Norman. Change of direction is an issue in coverage with Josh Norman. That is great as he is and as elite as he may be, he ain't the Shermans, the Patrick Petersons, the Darrell Reeveses of the world. He's not those dudes. Now he's inviting us to find out whether or not he is. And that's where things can get rough. We all hope it won't get rough for him. But having to face Odell Beckham Jr. twice a year, who you called out. Having to face Des Bryant twice a year, who knows what it could be.
Well, see, man, you make some great points, especially there at the end when you really capsulize who he is as a player. He's a talented player, but he's not overly talented. This is why he was not a high-round pick. There's a reason for that. That's not by accident. But here again, I think he was in a system that fit what he did well.
Yeah.
The Washington system will fit some of that. But you make point of this, Stephen A. Early in OTAs, when they were doing one-on-one drills, the media was there watching this, and there were a lot of balls caught on you, and they were questioning it then. But this goes along with the salary you just earned. And I will say this to all media folks. Just because a guy gets a lot of money, his talent does not change. He is still a good player. They don't get any faster. They don't get any bigger. They don't get any stronger. That's part of it. There will be balls caught on Josh Norman. But the problem he's going to run into is the fact that he's been paid all this money now. When someone catches a couple passes on him in the game, the first thing the media are going to cry out is say, hey, what's wrong with this guy?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Herm, but you had 23 interceptions over 4 seasons.
Yes.
Josh Norman had 7.
Oh.
7 interceptions over 4
You
seasons.
get $75 million contract?
No, but it's fine because at that point in time, no one made that guy.
According to these numbers, you get $225 million, Coach. They owe you some money.
My wife tells me you were too early.
Coach, is there any part of you that admires a guy? Because there is a part of me that admires the fact that even if he plays well in his own scheme and everything, if Odell Beckham catches a ball and scores a touchdown, and it's not even Norman's fault, but he happens to be on the screen, on your TV screen when Odell scores, he's going to get blamed for that too. And,
Sure.
and he's putting the spotlight on himself.
He's playing one of the toughest positions in football. I know. I lined up there, out there for 10 years.
Yeah.
I get it. And I understand his mentality. You got to have that mentality that he has. And I just think going forward, he has to understand that now the light that he wanted is on him.
Yeah.
Everything he says, everything he does, on and off the field, is on him from here on out.
Herm, before we go to break, though, correct me if I'm wrong. Of course, you want your player to have confidence,
Yes.
but you could have quiet confidence. That's not going to get you into trouble.
Well, you can, but he can speak. I mean, I like his bravado.
Exactly,
This is why they brought him in there, to be quite honest.
Yep.
Because they wanted him to go.
Let's not get into the business of telling folks how to act to a point where you got to act one specific way. I think that when I'm talking, people misinterpret me for saying you have to act specifically a certain way. That's not what I mean when I say the things that I say when I point out player behavior. What I'm asking them to do is be mindful of the minefields that are laying out there for you to touch on and just implode everything that you've worked for. That's all we're saying to Josh Norman. That's all we're saying to anybody. He doesn't have to be quiet. Just be mindful of the minefield.
Hey, Stephen A., did you hear those numbers she just gave me?
Yeah.
7 interceptions and 23 interceptions.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So you are owed, it seems to me. If he gets 75,
Philadelphia, come on.
you
Give me my money.
You deserve like an A-Rod contract.
I personally believe you deserve more to be paid more here, but that's just me.
We'll leave it there. Stephen A., is Beverly correct?
Correct. They're not going to the finals, but let me say a couple of things. Patrick Beverly is one of my favorite players in the NBA. He is a pit bull, got the heart of a lion. He could play on my team any day of the week. He is hardcore. He gets after it. He defends. He's not an offensive player. He'll hit the occasional jump shot, make the occasional basket, but he's on there usually for defense and energy. He's as feisty as they come, and I'm sure he means what he says because he never looks at himself at being at a disadvantage. Because, Max, I'm here to tell you, I know the kid personally. He is one of the true rough riders in the game. He doesn't have Russell Westbrook talent, but he has Russell Westbrook heart. Patrick Beverly is built like that. Let me get that out the way. Having said all of that, he's still wrong as hell. And here's why he's wrong. Because Mike D'Antoni's their coach. It's really that simple. Mike D'Antoni is a good man. He's a damn good offensive coach. Doesn't think about defense. I know people who've called him, my former partner called him Mike D'Antoni. Take the D out of the D'Antoni. Because there is no D in D'Antoni. Because his teams don't play any defense. You can't win if you ain't playing any defense. Now, some would sit there and say the exception would have been the Phoenix Suns because when Steve Nash and Marty Stoudemire and all of those boys were there, had Robert Horry not hip check Steve Nash into the scorer's table, and then the bench is sort of empty, the guys got suspended, Phoenix would have won that series, went to the finals, blah, blah, blah. Well, damn it, it didn't happen. And in the end, when we look at this Houston Rockets team, I just think they're ill-equipped to compete for a championship. They're not relevant in a championship picture. When you look at Golden State, when you look at San Antonio, when you look at the Clippers, they're clearly the three teams to beat, and then there's everybody else. And if you're going to look at somebody on the outside looking in, I'm going to look at Oklahoma City because even though Kevin Durant is gone, Russell Westbrook, Steven Adams, Enes Kanter, those boys are still there. Houston has James Harden, who is a superstar offensive player, fresh off an average of 29, 7.5, and 6. This brother is legit. He's big time. He's an offensive juggernaut, no doubt about it. But the Houston Rockets are not going to be good enough to warrant him getting strong MVP consideration. Mike D'Antoni not going to play any defense, so you'll have an opportunity to shoot in 7 seconds or less, get the ball out your hand and jack up shots all day, which will lead to more points for James Harden, but that's not going to necessarily lead to more wins for the Rockets. It's not going to lead to championship relevancy, thereby not making James Harden that relevant in the MVP conversation. He's an MVP talent. He is big time. But the team collectively will not be good enough, and as a result, they won't warrant MVP. He won't warrant MVP consideration because they won't warrant consideration at all.
I think there's a very good chance James Harden can actually win the MVP this year. I think Patrick Beverly, who I agree with you, you gotta love the way he plays. He's so tough. You know, he does get after it. If only James Harden cared as much about defense as Patrick Beverly cares about defense, he really would be a legitimate MVP level player. But the fact is, he doesn't. He knows, everyone knows the way you get paid in the NBA is to put up numbers. In fact, MVP voters in the NBA, not as bad as baseball MVP voters years ago, where if you had a lot of RBIs, they just give you the MVP, even if there were literally 10 players in the league better than you. Still, MVP voters tend to reward scorers and great offensive players, and James Harden can get to the basket, he can shoot the three, that's for sure. I want to get to Mike D'Antoni in a second, or right now, rather. He revolutionized the NBA, Stephen A., with the spread pick and roll, really exploiting fully the rules changes and the three-point shot. But when the rest of the league adjusted, and many adapted and adopted his parts of what he did into their own systems, like Greg Popovich, etc., and he didn't have an answer back, that...
You shouldn't need an alarm clock to wake you up. That passion
inside of you that should just get you up automatically. Like,
I think that we arrive where we want to arrive. If we are passionate, if we're dedicated, if we're resilient.
There's no right answer. There's no right job for you. You got to try things, see what sticks to your soul.
Your work is a representation of you, and that's something that you should take pride in.
That means what he did, where you're like, my God, he's an offensive genius. If you have no answer once the league adjusts and starts doing you better than you do, then it's really like all you did was a parlor trick and everyone else figured it out. And one of the reasons I think D'Antoni hasn't had success since Phoenix, except briefly with Jeremy Lin, was in New York, is that he can't get his best players to buy in. Now, Carmelo's an ISO player, Kobe was an ISO player, Dwight had his own issues, James Harden's kind of an ISO player. I mean, he racks up some assists, but it's like the ball really sticks with him. And part of the job of a coach is to get your best player to buy in. You can't simply be like, oh, well, can't get the best guy to buy in, what can I do? No, that's your job as a coach to get that done. I think Harden is desperate enough right now, and D'Antoni is desperate enough right now, that it may actually be a good match because they'll have to meet each other halfway. I think the Rockets, given the bottom of the West, it's a great top-heavy conference, but the bottom leaves enough room for them to get in there, and Harden as by far the number one offensive option on his team. When you look at Durant and Steph going to split votes, when you look at LeBron, who takes his foot off the gas in the regular season because he saves it for the playoffs, he may not get as many votes as he really deserves, especially with Kyrie coming up the way he is. You start looking around the league, it very well may boil down to Harden and Westbrook because voters reward scorers, and so much of the offense of those two teams is going to go through those two guys. I think Harden's right in the mix.
But it can't be on mediocre teams, and that's exactly what Houston is going to be. Because how are you going to get two dudes with the same mentality moving? Meeting equal ground or whatever. How are you going to pull that off? They're both on the offensive side of the ball. Now, if one focused on defense and one focused on offense, and you met halfway, that would be different. But both of them have the same mentality. James Harden doesn't care that much about defense as a player, and D'Antoni doesn't care that much about defense as a coach. So how is that going to work? That means they're going to be juggernauts offensively, but defensively, they're going to leave a lot to be desired. That's what it comes down to the Houston Rockets. Not to mention the fact that they're not going to be that good in my estimation. I have nothing but faith in Beverly. I have nothing but faith in Harden as an offensive player. D'Antoni is going to put points on the board. They're going to play an exciting brand of basketball, and I think that Houston is to be respected in that regard. But defensively, as much as sensitive as Mike D'Antoni, is about that, and it's a shame because I can't stand being critical of him because he's such a nice man. He really, really is, Max. He really is a nice guy. But the bottom line is he doesn't give a damn about defense. And no matter what he says, his history, his resume shows that he does not give a damn about defense. He even incriminated himself when he was coaching the Lakers because he was getting mad at the media because the media talked about how he didn't focus on defense at all in practice. He said, what are you talking about? I spent 25 minutes on defense. That's what he said. That's a quote, okay? I think it was 25 minutes.
I was calling him Mike D'Antoni from way back. There's no defense on, although his defensive efficiency is a little, it looks even worse than it is because there's so many possessions because he wants to score so fast. He's not quite as bad defensively as given credit for, but he obviously does not care very much about defense. I don't think that hurts his chances with MVP voters for Harden because the voters don't seem to care.
Stop. Bottom line. Coaches in the profession swear the man don't care about defense and knows very little about it.
We will leave it there. Coming up, another subject you two are on the opposite side of the spectrum with. We will get Herm Edwards' take on the Joey Bosa situation. We started this debate earlier. Things got heated. We'll pick it up, and Herm will get involved as well. Stay tuned. That was Damian Woody saying that he should hold out and re-enter the draft. Herm, should Bosa sit this season out?
Personally, I would not. I just think there's too much to lose then. Now, he's made his point. There's no doubt about that. He has a history. His family had made their point in these situations. But I think when you look at his situation, he's got to ask himself, if I decide to hold out, the Chargers still have my rights. Now, maybe they trade him. Maybe week 8 they trade him. Well, likelihood of that happening? Probably not.
I don't think they're allowed to. Right. If they don't trade him soon, I don't think they're allowed to until the end of He gets to enter the draft.
And the problem he has is that what he's betting on is that I'm going to be drafted in the top 5 again next year. I don't know that to be true because he's been a year out of football. And there lies the problem. You're not on tape anymore. You're a guy that played college football a year ago. Even though he's a young guy, the problem is, are you going to be the top 3 player? Some people will say, man, I don't know about that. So the money that you could have taken this year, you've lost. And you never get that money back. You're never going to get it back. And they can say, well, we get it back 10 years from now. It's still money you lost. You don't get the money you lost back. It never works that way because you left it on the table and you said, I'm not going to play football. So I just think at the end, he's made a point. He needs to play as fast as he can, get these years done so he gets his second contract. Now that's the big one. It's not the first one. The public opinion will say, well, the $17 million is out. No, it's your second contract. It's the contract Josh Norman got through his play of being a professional football player. That's why he got that money. That's what Joey Bosa has to do. You want your clock to go as fast as you can. Get in the league, go play for 4 years, be a great player, and then you sit there and you can demand things. He's got better leverage, in my opinion.
I agree with Damian Woody here. And look, it's not like Kurt Flood. I understand that, like, him making a sacrifice of a year of his career and all that, it's not like labor situation in football is where baseball was or any of the major sports were 30 and 40 and 50 years ago. These guys are getting rich. I get that. So it's not exactly the same. But the argument will always be there for the teams and for the league to maintain power over the players in an unfair way, really, because there's no other competing league that they can, it's like collective bargaining is really from the owners, take it or leave it, because last time there was a lockout, our ratings barely changed. People just like watching football, and they essentially have a monopoly. There's no other league that can offer to make these guys rich. So I get that. But what Damian Woody is basically making the point, I feel, I don't want to speak for him, but my interpretation of what he's saying, and I feel the same way, is if it's always about what you're losing, and the fact that it's going to be difficult, and the fact that it's impractical, and the fact that it may not even be in your best, certainly short-term interest, if that always trumps making a sacrifice to make it better for the players' union, or even make it better for yourself down the road, they're never going to win anything. Like, these guys are never going to get any concessions. And, Coach, your point about he's made his point is only true if he stays the course, unless the point is that it's only going to get worse for him. He's not going to get drafted highly. He's going to lose about a year of experience, and will be a counterexample. And they can point that, see, don't do what Joey Bosa did. If that's your point, I get it. Otherwise, I don't think he's made his point unless he holds out.
I think he's made. Go ahead, Steve.
Where I'm at and where I'm struggling with this, guys, is that,
you shouldn't need an alarm clock to wake you up. That passion inside of you, that should just get you up automatically.
Believing in yourself isn't something that happens overnight.
I think that we arrive where we want to arrive. If we are passionate, if we're dedicated, if we're resilient.
And the mistakes and the barriers and the difficult challenges, for me, are part of the process. It's normal.
There's no right answer. There's no right job for you. You gotta figure it out. You gotta try things, see what sticks to your soul. Do what you want to do. And if you don't know what you want to do, just do something.
Your work is a representation of you. And that's something that you should take pride in.
On its face, I disagree with Max and Damian, but I will openly confess I need to grasp a better understanding, because when I'm listening to Max or when I'm listening to Damian and Woody, I literally find myself asking, what the hell are y'all talking about? Because what is it that I understand that San Diego is they're addicted to their way of doing things and then trying to shortchange them to some degree. I get that, but again, Coach, I'm going to go back to the 3 categories that I'm paying attention to. According to the charges, if they're telling the truth, an initial signing bonus payment that is larger than any rookie has received in the past 2 NFL drafts. So a signing bonus larger than any rookie has received in the last 2 NFL drafts. We all know what those numbers are. They're on the record saying their numbers are larger. They're not talking about themselves. They're talking about any rookie has received in the last 2 NFL drafts in terms of signing bonus. More money than anybody. Then they say more money in 2016 than every rookie in this year's class except Carson Wentz, who was picked a slot before you. There's no crime there. If anything, Carson Wentz should have a problem, or Jared Goff would have a problem with Carson Wentz getting more than him since he was the number 1 overall pick. So when we look at that one, and then the third category, the largest payment and highest percentage of signing bonus received in the first calendar year of any Chargers first round pick. Now that doesn't matter as much because those picks for the Chargers fell out of the top 10. So we understand that's no big deal. They're buffering themselves there. But the first 2 categories, largest signing bonus and more money than anybody other than Carson Wentz. I'm like, you're a rookie coming into the league? What is Damian Woody talking about? I disagree with him and Max on its face, but I must confess I'm at a loss because they sound like Joey Bosa's getting screwed over here. I did agree that was the case when they were talking about the language and other stuff a week ago, 2 weeks ago. But based on what they're saying right now, it seems like they've leaned towards giving him most of what he's wanted. And if you're talking about a signing bonus that's more than anybody, and a 1-year salary, meaning his first year, that's more than anybody's but Carson Wentz, I don't understand the problem here. I really don't.
Well, I think, he's caught up on the wording. Obviously, if he doesn't, he wants all his money up now. He wants all his bonus money up front now, or he wants the ability, if he should get cut, or he can double dip if someone else signs him. Well, first of all, I wouldn't. That's the last thing I'd be thinking about. We're gonna get cut. if you're a first round pick, third round pick, right? Player picked in the draft, I'll say if I'm worried about me getting cut, that's not a good idea. Okay, I do know this about National Football League, and I will say this: they kick the ball off at 1 o'clock, and they will kick the ball off at 1 o'clock with Joey Bosa, without Joey Bosa, and he will be history if he doesn't sign. We won't even talk about him anymore. We'll be talking about games. That's it. That's how the league works. And Coach, you're right. Joey Bosa, Max, is a number 3 overall pick. What the hell are you thinking about getting cut 3-4 years down the road?
Well, it's not. See, but you guys are talking about the pragmatic kind of aspect of all this, and on those points, you may be right. Although the Chargers are putting out a lot of propaganda about their offer right now, that's their analysis of their offer.
I believe that.
But let's take them at their word as you are doing and saying, then what's the problem? In that case, I admire Joey Bosa because he's saying, wait, at this moment he is. We'll see, Coach, as you say, what actually happens. But at this moment he's saying, wait, there's a principle at stake here, and this is a battleground between the league and the players. There's a slotting system. There's been precedent set. If you're drafted here, you get this or this. They're saying neither. He's saying, it's going to be one or the other. And he's willing to make a sacrifice maybe for that.
Go for it.
I'll give you the other. Here's the other. 1 o'clock, they're kicking it off.
Yeah.
No doubt.
You want to be on your couch watching for a whole year? No.
I'll be here that Sunday.
With Tom Brady or without him. With Aaron Rodgers or without him.
Willing to miss the season? Willing to miss the season, Max?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
All right.
It depends on if, are you principled?
By the way, Max Molly, Coach, remember the scouting report on him for all of the superlatives they threw out there, they did highlight hustle on and off. Some weeks he looked like he wanted it, some weeks he didn't. So again, knowing that, you're still sure that that's good for him to miss the season.
How bad do you want it? Get there. Get there.
2 more weeks. 1 o'clock.
Joey,
Chargers are winning the PR.
We want to see what won, or they're kicking off without you. Thank you so much. It was fun having you. Coming up, should Blake Griffin be a Clipper for life? Doc Rivers says he thinks he'll retire in L.A. We'll react to that when we come back. Either player walking away in July. Stephen A., does Blake owe the Clippers?
Yes, he does. First of all, let me say this. Blake is a star. He's box office. The Clippers should want to keep him. There's no doubt about that. He was hurt last year. I'm not going to hold his performance in the playoffs where he just averaged like 15 and 8. He was not healthy. He battled through. He missed 47 games last year. Had a bevy of injuries. We understand that. The year before, when he was playing and they got to Game 7 when they blew that Game 6 at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, and they were destined to face the Golden State Warriors in the conference finals, and they collapsed against the Houston Rockets. Blake Griffin averaged like 25, I think it was a 25, 12, and 6 that series. Blake Griffin's big time. There's no doubt about that. But the reason why I would say he owes the Clippers is because he's big time. But they have yet to play in the conference finals. Chris Paul is there. Chris Paul, and I keep saying this, and there's a distinction, and people disagree with it, feel free. Doesn't matter. Chris Paul is a 6-foot point guard. He's an orchestrator. He's a floor general. But when you are the Melos, the LeBrons, the Blake Griffins of the world, and people like that, whose size and athleticism are so imposing that you can make that kind of a difference, you've got to deliver the goods. And the fact that you haven't yet should be a bane in your existence to some degree. When you look at the Golden State Warriors and what has transpired now that they've got Kevin Durant, where are you going? I mean, Blake Griffin, the only conceivable place that he could go where you legitimately couldn't knock him, Max, if he were to get up and leave and go to Oklahoma City to join Russell Westbrook. And as great as I think Russell Westbrook is, as phenomenal of an athlete and a talent as he is, from a point guard's perspective, why would you go to him when you got Chris Paul? That, to me, is the difference. And so as a result of that, I stay put where I'm at. I got Doc Rivers as my coach. I got Chris Paul as my point guard. I got DeAndre Jordan, who is a skywalker and a phenomenal athlete at the center position. I'm going to stick with that.
Whistle while you wait. Put on that music, start that whistle down and down. Just hum a merry tune. Whistle while you wait.
And I'm going to roll the dice, and I think the Clippers may very well end up having the best chance to knock off the Golden State Warriors than anybody in the Western Conference, and that includes San Antonio. But that only exists if you keep Blake Griffin in tow. And if I'm the Clippers, you sign him to a long-term extension, you don't lose him. But if I'm Blake Griffin, I don't think about leaving. The Clippers have unfinished business, and it's got his name written all over it, just like CP3's.
So the Clippers do have a chance to beat Golden State, because the other day we were arguing about that. I said Clippers fans are going to believe that they have a chance to beat Golden State. You said no.
They have a chance.
Oh, okay.
They have a chance. I don't believe they will.
Tape on
they
that.
have a chance.
Look,
you know that?
I agree with you that it made sense for him to resign. Because where else is he going to go? Boston, maybe you would say they need a superstar, maybe, but you ain't leaving LA with comparable talent to go to Boston. It's a better lifestyle. Okay, I get that. But the idea that he owes this franchise anything to me is ridiculous. First of all, an NBA player has no choice where they get drafted. He gets drafted to this team. They sign him to a rookie contract. You're not getting paid your market value, all that stuff. He makes them a destination. You know, I mean, Chris Paul winds up on the team. The NBA seemed to kind of direct him to the Clippers, but you could see that no one ever thought about playing for the Clippers before if they had really had it. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, Blake's there, and DeAndre's getting better. But really, Blake made them a destination. He made them relevant. I don't think he owes them anything, but I think they owe him. But I do think that signing with the Clippers was a good idea. He's injury prone. He's shown that. There's a lot of money that he can collect, that he can, sign for and guarantee himself right now. And as you mentioned, when you look at the Western Conference, they have, of all the non-Warrior teams, they may have the best situation for him. And even if OKC did, Stephen A., he'd be trading up LA or trading down LA to go to Oklahoma City. I don't think a lot of people make that choice either. So it's a good idea for him to sign, but I don't think he owes them anything.
Max Kellerman, Blake Griffin made the Clippers a desirable destination. We understand that. So what do? They get CP3. They get Doc Rivers. You have the talent around you, and you don't finish the deal. Primarily due to injury, in all fairness to him. But you were there doing afternoon drive in L.A. You know some of those stories that was emanating out of there. Questions about the relationship with some of the players, whether it be CP3 or DeAndre Jordan. He punches some equipment manager, whoever it is, in the face because the dude was teasing him about how Blake wasn't winning and wasn't getting it done, and you overreact and hurt your hand and you're out for weeks because of that. All of these things factor into the equation because at the end of the day, if you are the Blake Griffin we believe you to be, at one point or another over the course of your 6-year career, 3 times in which you advanced to the conference semifinals, you should have found a way to get it done. Some would argue. So when you look at it from that perspective, and then you look at the personnel that you have with you, and then you look at the coaching that you have with you, you look at the city that you're playing in, you look at how vulnerable the inept, moribund Los Angeles Lakers have become, and then you couple all of that with the fact that KD now went to Golden State to try to ensure that they're going to be the team to beat in the Western Conference for years to come. If you're Blake Griffin and you got that competitive fervor inside of you, then excuse me, you don't run from that challenge. And the best challenge is the challenge that you have right in front of your face, playing for the franchise you're playing for. Sure. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. And he don't owe him, Stephen A., but I agree with you. He should stay.
I think he owes him.
All right, let's leave it there. Coming up next, yes, for sure. Did Jason Garrett and the Cowboys steal something from Bill Belichick and the Pats? We'll tell you what it is, and let Stephen A. just go off after the break. This conversation going to be good. Listen to this. During the Patriots' almost 2-decade-long run as a perennial Super Bowl contender, the slogan, "Do your job," was a familiar line used by Bill Belichick to keep players focused on team responsibilities. The Patriots have 3 trademarks on that phrase, but that didn't stop the Dallas Cowboys from using it at their brand new practice facility. Rob Gronkowski responding on Twitter, the Cowboys' new slogan sounds familiar. What are your thoughts? Hashtag do your job gate. Stephen A., your reaction?
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, listen, let's give the Dallas Cowboys credit here. I mean, nothing that they do for themselves work other than generating publicity for themselves. They've been a walking piece of mediocrity. They have the most disgusting fan base in American history because they're so delusional, they're nauseating, makes you want to throw up on a regular basis. And now we've learned that in spite that it's not just bad enough that you've only got 2 playoff victories in 20 years, that you've been a model of ineptitude, that you've embarrassed America by calling yourself America's team, thereby allowing a world to associate mediocrity with the greatest country in the world. But now you reveal yourself to be thieves, because in the end, the real America's team, which is the New England Patriots, who have been a model of consistency, 4 Super Bowl titles, 6 trips to the Super Bowl, perennial title contenders, having only missed the playoffs in the last 15 years, the Dallas Cowboys decide to get smart but slick at the same time by trying to steal something from the New England Patriots to attach to themselves. They'll probably brand it, for crying out loud, trademark it, make money off of it, because we know how brilliant Jerry Jones is. It's disgraceful, but I'm not surprised. These are who the Cowboys are. Their fan base is they're the instigators for all of this because they accept this nonsense. So long as the Cowboys are going to win, or they think they're going to win, or they have an excuse to act like they think they're going to win, all is well with Big D until the games begin on Sunday. I'm so surprised.
Well, I mean, look, they're showing you the genius of this franchise. And the spirit of Tex Schramm lives on in Jerry Jones. Think about this for a second. The most valuable franchise in American team sports is the Cowboys. They're number 1.
Their real estate isn't especially expensive. The Dallas-Arlington area is not especially densely populated compared to other major markets.
What are you, a real estate agent now? What are you, a real estate agent?
He reads a lot. He knows about everything.
They don't win a lot. They don't have the greatest track record. There are other teams that have won more championships. They haven't had the most recent success. And yet Rob Gronkowski and now Stephen A. Smith have been successfully baited into giving them free publicity. This is the reason they have this delusional fan base, Stephen A. It's not just that their fans are suckers. We're all suckers. Tex Schramm and Jerry Jones.
The doctor said it was ADHD, and she told us about the symptoms.
I'll get it.
I didn't even know adults could have ADHD. Like me?
ADHD is estimated to affect 10 million adults in the U.S. While adults may occasionally experience symptoms similar to ADHD, adults with ADHD experience them on a regular basis. Talk with your doctor and visit ADHDandadults.com.
Fans are suckers. We're all suckers. Tex Schramm and Jerry Jones still winning.
Imitation, the sincerest form of flattery.
They can sit up there all they want to. In the end, they don't win, but they act like they're winners. That's what makes them disgusting and delusional. Period.
Well, listen, I'm a Giants fan. You're not going to have me sitting here defending the Cowboys.
Listen, guys, we got a lot to do. We got to go. We'll see you tomorrow. Tune in, please. Goodbye, gentlemen.